turning hyper-local shows into global hits. And please welcome Danna Stern, Managing Director, S Studios. Request Danna to go ahead with the presentation. Thank you very much.
Hi, thank you, Vijay. Hi. Good morning, everyone. It's actually 5:45 in the morning here in Tel Aviv. So you can tell it's very important, and I'm very happy to be here. India has been a very good partners of us at Yes Studios. We're an Israeli-based distributor, sales arm, and development company. And you might know us from some of our series that have traveled globally, like Fauda, which I know is a huge, huge hit in India, Shtisel, and Your Honor, which has actually been adapted in India. The second season just launched earlier this week, thanks to our friends at Applause Entertainment and Sony Live, and many, many other shows that have certainly come out of Israel, not just from Yes Studios. Just a few hours ago, Tehran, a big action Israeli thriller, won the International Emmy. And that show is available on Apple Plus. It's not our show, but they're all friends, and I'm happy. And I want to congratulate them from here. But this is the kind of shows that Israel is making that has been traveling the world in this great time that we're in, thanks to technological changes that have allowed content creators from throughout the world to take their stories and to bring them to international audiences. Now, to go back a little bit in time, this was impossible a mere 6 years ago. When Fauda first launched in 2015 in Israel, we felt we had something special. We knew that the passion and the storytelling and the intimacy of the story on the one hand, the realism, but on the other hand, it had the mechanisms of a great action show with flawed characters and multifaceted heroes and villains, and you kind of didn't know who it was. So it always felt like a very unique story, but no one could have thought, and this again, is 2015. It's not that long ago that show would resonate with audiences everywhere. And to be here, to be on Zoom and speaking to people in India who know the show is just mind-blowing. And when we started out back then, the only opportunity really to get your stories told across any body of water, any territory, would have been to get them adapted. And that is a huge part of our business today, but obviously it's not the only business. And Fauda, when we started out, we were looking for partners who would take the story and adapt it to their country. And by country, I usually mean the United States. That was the beacon that we all looked to at the time. It seemed to be the place to go. That's where other successful Israeli formats had gone before in treatment, which has been around for the last 15 years, and certainly Homeland, which was the most successful of the Israeli formats that went to the US. And it was based on an Israeli show, and I know there's been an Indian adaptation as well. And that's what we were looking for. And the reality is, there is no American story to tell that's comparable to Fauda. It didn't stop us from trying, because we thought that was the right way to go. Unfortunately, we didn't look at the story, we looked at the business opportunity. Thankfully, we were stopped in our tracks, and Netflix had launched globally in early 2016, and we had become the first non-English kind of international show to launch with them at just the right time. Now, there was a lot of, it wasn't smooth sailing to begin with, the whole notion of translating and dubbing. Israel is a translation nation. We read subtitles. We never, ever dub. And to have a show like Fauda dubbed, and certainly into English, was difficult for us initially. In fact, the dub was so bad that they had to redo it twice. Right, I think now you'll find that at least the technological part of it has caught up, and some of those dubs are getting to be really, really good. But the point that Netflix was trying to make was, we're trying to educate people to see storytelling from other countries. We can't now educate them to read subtitles at the same time. We want to make it as easy as possible for people. Hopefully that's changing too. But at the time, it was something that we both had to go through as a learning curve together. So Fauda made it on air in 2016, and I would say that if we look kind of at the trajectory of the storytelling and lessons learned from here, we kind of went from selling our shows as adaptations and getting our own stories told through the technological advances of streaming platform in our own native, show in our own native language and original storytelling. And then if we progress from there, there's sort of been a ton of opportunities on the back of that for Israeli storytellers to come out and tell their stories to a wider audience. So shows like Our Boys, which was done for HBO, which again is Hebrew language, Arabic, couldn't have been done if Fauda hadn't set the precedent. That show was done directly for HBO in a foreign language. To even think that about that is just again, mind blowing. The opportunity that we could get to tell that, and that was directly done for an American company in New York, HBO. Other options, other storytelling certainly has happened. The bridge that these shows have formed have allowed storytellers to just tell their stories in any language. One of the most successful or critically lauded series this year has Scenes of a Marriage, is from an Israeli showrunner writer, Chagai Levi, who happened to also have done In Treatment, of course. And he could have take that iconic series and reimagined it and made it his own in New York already, although he's never lived there. He is Israeli, but he is what you can't take away from anyone, no matter what language they work in and what country. He is a storyteller. And this kind of brings me to the topic of what we're discussing here today, is really how do you get shows to travel, and what is, if any, is a secret ingredient that you can make when you're looking for regional and local storytelling that you want to get to a larger audience. So first I would say, make the best show you can, and do it with passion, and do it with a reason. A lot of series that we get pitched, and I'm sure that's the same for anybody here on the commissioning and production side of the conversation today, is people want to sell shows versus want to tell stories. And those are two separate things. Because a lot of the times they'll come in and say, well, this has worked somewhere else. Let's do a version of this, or let's do something like this. Or right now we need, action series. By the way, that's also always true. But, we need action series. Or if Squid Games work, let's find, another version of Squid Games. That is not storytelling done with a passion. That's storytelling done as a profession. And I think those two things need to be very, very clear. If you're going to be spending years, and it's always years, no matter how quickly you work, and I will give, credit where credit is due. I've never seen any market work as quickly as the Indian production market. You guys really are the best, and we always say that. When we did Your Honor in the US, it took 4.5 years to get onto the screen. Plaza's version took, I think, a year and a half. And season 2 is already on the air in India, as I mentioned. And season 2 in the US has just started a writer's room. And it won't launch probably till the end of 2022 if we're lucky. So storytelling can be done quicker, but still it's going to take years. And so make sure you want to spend time with your story and with your characters and the world that you're creating. Do it with a passion. Hopefully there's something there that resonates with the showrunner, creator, writer, scriptwriter, director, the key people there, that this feels personal to them. It's not something that they're just doing as a profession. It's something that they're doing because there's an impetus to tell it. Most of our successful and the most successful series that we have are stories that have a personal connection. Fauda, Avi, and Leoraz and Avi Samchalov, our two co-creators, they were undercover soldiers in the Israeli military. This is the story. This is their story. There's little snippets of characters and people that they knew. A lot of the action and the sequence and the conflict comes from real world encounters, obviously heightened and dramatized, but they're based on real things that have happened in this region. Shtisel, the story, the small story of a ultra-Orthodox religious family in Mea Shearim, a religious neighborhood in Jerusalem, is the story of the two co-creators who grew up in that world. Obviously, that's not their one-to-one. They didn't, have, unfortunately, their mother passed away and lived with their father until, they're an aging bachelor looking for love. But they know those characters, they know that world, they know those experiences, they know those sayings, and it comes from them. Another great example, and will also lead me to show you some video, is a show called On a Spectrum, which is the story of adults, young adults in their late 20s on the autistic spectrum. That show was created by Danna Stern, whose brother, Guy himself, is a young adult on the autistic spectrum. Her version is told from the perspective of a brother looking into his sister as she grows up and becomes independent, but still needs to live a sheltered life. And the story is just a love letter to young adults trying to integrate and fit into what is normal society or regular society, trying to find a job, gainful, lawful employment, and love. This is a great example of a little show and kind of the trajectory that we had. As soon as I saw it back in the editing room in an assembly form, so it wasn't even a full form, it was just scenes kind of sitting there, you could tell this was something special. And I felt, we had to go on this global journey to get this little tiny show. It's not a big show, it's not action, it's not, there's no huge dramatic action scenes, there's no huge dramatic engine, it's just scenes from day-to-day life. But because the message of the show and the execution of it was so great, there was an entire campaign that we planned as soon as we saw it. And we took it from that little show, and as soon as it was ready, we submitted it to festivals. We got it into Tribeca. This was the first foreign language show ever as part of the Tribeca Film Festival. Then we went on to Series Mania, where it won the grand prize. And only then, by the way, did we launch it in Israel. So this was already touring a couple of months before the series ever launched here. Then we set out to do an adaptation, and thankfully we found Jason Katims in the US, who is a very established writer, show writer, and his son himself is a young adult on the autistic spectrum. So as soon as he saw the material, he responded to it in a very natural, organic, passionate way. I cannot stress that word enough. And at the same time, we were very fortunate. We managed to sell the Israeli series to HBO Max. So kind of completed the entire cycle. So both the Israeli version is available, it's an award winner, and the US version is about to launch on Amazon Prime Video in January. And thankfully, last night, the trailer came out for On the Spectrum. This is the American adaptation that will be available globally starting in January. And let's take a pause, take a look, and we can come back. So this is On the Spectrum, the new trailer, the US adaptation of our show.
You ready? I know that you can do it. Let's check in on how our weekly goals are going. As a part of moving into this apartment, we all agreed on a certain set of goals.
Yes, I need to get and maintain a job. Check. And I need to make friends.
Well played, Jack.
Thank you, but I didn't play well. You played poorly. You're very old.
I'm sorry, it's the Asperger's. He doesn't mean it.
I mean it. She tanked that hand.
I want a boyfriend. It's normal to have a boyfriend. Hey, look, he's so cute.
Ooh, I'd hit that.
Hi, Major. We live right above you.
I don't leave the building.
Why not?
Lots of reasons.
If you're lost and alone, or you're sinking like a stone, carry on.
Do you want your dad to be supporting you forever?
Yes.
I have cancer, Jack. I need to know you're gonna be okay.
We should have a date.
Oh.
We can't have sex on date 1 or date 2, but on date 3 we can screw, okay?
What?
Carry on.
My roommate's birthday starts in 92 minutes. I have to be there, and it's going to be terrible.
Are you trying to invite me to a party?
No!
That's tragic.
All that fear and anxiety that you're feeling, you just gotta push right through it. Make that fear your bitch.
Here's my bitch.
Spent my entire life trying to hide the whole autism thing.
I think you are such a beautiful person that you shouldn't have to hide who you are.
That makes me want to throw up.
Hearing other trailers, but I hope it was worth it, that little break. So that show On the Spectrum, to get it to that level where it's launching on a global streaming platform, took almost 4 years of work. So I would say if you're looking to take your local storytelling global, no matter what direction you choose, whether it's pitching it at an early stage to a global streamer, or coming on and bringing in partners to do an adaptation, you need to first and foremost have patience. The good news is that the last 2 years, certainly during the pandemic, there's been so many opportunities that have been created for global storytellers to tell global stories on new platforms. Just the last 2 years, we've seen the launch of Disney Plus and HBO Max and Peacock and P Plus. In India, there's 5 or 6 at least more local players. You are a key market to the existing. I almost want to say legacy. It's funny to think of them as legacy, but certainly Netflix and Amazon and Apple that launched just a little bit before the pandemic. All these great platforms that want to tell stories and realize there's a whole world out there that's bigger than the US alone. When we started out in 2015, 2016, we would have to go pitch everything to LA. And I know, LA is 10 hours from us, but it's impossible for somebody in Mumbai to get on a call with LA when you're both awake and, supposedly at work. So I can realize how difficult that could be. Now the world has becoming smaller because the big streamers, who are still, by the way, all American, but they realize there's a whole world that's bigger outside the US than in the US. So they're setting up regional offices in key markets. You're very fortunate to be living where you are, where you're a key strategic market to all of these players. You are the biggest market outside of the US at this point. So there's many opportunities to tell these regional stories, and certainly they will resonate with viewers if they're told with a passion, an authenticity, a real reason, a real impetus to want to tell that story. And then you can choose your path, whether it's the long path of On the Spectrum, for example, or your honor, where you start up getting the show made and making sure it is known to audiences through festivals, to trade press, through social media. I cannot stress how important that is today, to make sure that you manage your social media strategy correctly for your shows. So this is one route that you can take. It's a longer one, and then hopefully get buyers and platforms interested. Either do adaptations or sell tape to these partners and other regional players, as important, or go the channel distribution strategy. These are also great partners to have, at least on the marketing side. They're going to be with you. Or try to take the shorter route, where you're developing a story, where you know where you want to go. You have a clear vision. You have a very clear Bible. You take on great production partners that can take you as far as you can go with physical production, with financing when you need it, and go use the opportunities that you have in your markets to go to regional and local and international streaming platforms and players and pitch to them your story. And if it's done right, if it's done for the right reasons, if it's done authentically, if it's done with passion, and of course, you're getting the best creative partners on board, there's no reason today that a story won't travel. And I'll be in Tel Aviv watching hopefully something that one of you has made. So thank you for having me on this morning. I think that's all the time that we had, and I'm happy to take any and all questions, and I'm very accessible on social media, on LinkedIn. So if anybody wants to follow up, I'm happy to do that as well.
All right. Thank you so very much, Danna, for joining us all the way from Israel. That was really insightful. Much appreciated. Unfortunately, we don't have any questions for you at this point in time, but if any of the audience would like to reach out to Danna, Danna's readily available. And as she mentioned, she's also active on social media. Once again, thank you so very much, Danna, for joining us. Much appreciated.
Sure. Have a good morning and a good conference.
Thank you so very much.